It was almost midnight when Keanu Reeves walked through the big, spinning glass doors of the Horizon Skylark Hotel. He wore a simple dark jacket over a slightly wrinkled t-shirt. His steps were steady and he looked calm, but there was a kind of quiet tiredness about him. It had been a long day. The hotel lobby was huge and fancy. The floors were made of shiny marble and the lights were soft and warm. There were big green plants placed around the room, making everything look peaceful. Outside, through the tall glass windows, the city lights sparkled like tiny stars. But inside, the lobby was quiet. There were only a few people around, and the whole place felt like it was waiting for something important to happen. Keanu had a secret. He had just bought this luxury hotel, but hardly anyone knew yet. Instead of having a big celebration or telling the staff right away, he wanted to see the hotel on a normal night. He didn't want special treatment. He didn't want anyone to act differently just because he was the new owner. He just wanted to observe. He took a slow look around. The walls had modern paintings. A huge crystal chandelier hung from the ceiling, sparkling softly. The air smelled clean like fresh flowers. There was gentle music playing, a soft violin melody that made everything feel calm. At the far end of the lobby, near the reception desk, a hotel worker was arranging flowers in a tall glass vase. His name tag said Noah. He wore a crisp black uniform and handled the flowers with great care, placing each one in the vase like he was creating a piece of art. Keanu watched him for a moment. He remembered something a friend had once told him: the way a person does small things can show you a lot about their character. The way Noah arranged the flowers, so careful, so patient, told Keanu something about him. Noah finished his work and looked up. He noticed Keanu standing nearby and smiled politely. "Good evening, sir. Are you checking in?" he asked in a friendly voice. Keanu nodded, returning the smile. "I might just sit for a moment. It's been a long day." "Of course," Noah replied, his tone respectful. "Please let me know if you need anything." Keanu walked over to a quiet corner of the lobby and sat down in a large leather chair. The cushions were soft, and as he leaned back, he let out a small sigh. He was exhausted. His day had been packed with business calls, a last-minute charity event, and a quick flight into town. But something in his gut had told him he needed to come here tonight. He needed to see the place for himself before making any big decisions as the new owner. A few minutes later, the elevator doors slid open with a quiet ding. A couple stepped out. They looked like they were in their 40s. The man, Grayson, wore a fancy blazer. The woman, Victoria, wore a sleek cocktail dress that sparkled under the lights, and her earrings glittered as she walked. By the way they moved, just a little too carefully, and the way they spoke, just a little too loudly, it was clear that they had been drinking. Maybe they had just come from an expensive dinner with a little too much wine. "I can't believe how this place has changed," Victoria said, pressing her fingers against her temple like she had a headache. Her voice was sharp, almost annoyed. "Even the fancy restaurants here aren't as good anymore." Grayson nodded, his face serious, as if they were talking about something truly terrible. "I remember when this hotel was the best in the city. Now, I don't know anymore." Keanu sat quietly in his chair, one leg crossed over the other, pretending not to hear them. But their voices were loud and it was impossible not to notice. The couple walked up to the reception desk where Noah was still working. He was finishing his tasks for the evening, checking papers, organizing things neatly. "You," Victoria said suddenly. Her voice was sharp, demanding. "We ordered room service earlier. It was awful. I want to speak to whoever is really in charge here." Noah lifted an eyebrow slightly but kept his face calm. "I'm the senior desk attendant tonight, ma'am. How can I help you?" Victoria frowned, looking him up and down like she was judging him. "I'm not sure you can help," she said. "Is there someone else here? Someone in charge?" The air in the room changed. It felt heavier, full of tension. Keanu's jaw tightened. He recognized what was happening. The way Victoria spoke, the way she looked at Noah, it wasn't just about room service. She didn't think Noah was important enough to handle their complaint. Noah's hands tightened slightly on the desk, but his voice stayed steady. "Our night manager is not here right now, but I can assist you with any concerns you have. We take service very seriously at the Horizon Skylark." Victoria let out a small laugh, but it wasn't friendly. "This hotel has really gone downhill," she muttered. Grayson stepped forward, his voice low and condescending. "We've been coming here for 10 years. The old owners knew how to keep things in order." He paused, then asked, "Are you new?" Noah opened his mouth, then hesitated for just a second before answering. "I've worked here for 5 years, sir." Victoria smirked. "Really? That explains a lot." Keanu felt his hands curl into fists. He had seen this kind of thing before, when people treated someone unfairly, judging them not by their work but by something else entirely. Noah, however, stayed professional. "Please let me know how I can fix this for you," he said. Grayson's face turned cold. "How about we speak to a real manager tomorrow? Someone who understands what we expect. We'll be making a formal complaint about you and the poor service." Noah simply nodded. "Of course. I'll pass along your concerns." Victoria scoffed. "Oh, you've done enough," she said, turning toward the elevator. Grayson gave Noah one last hard stare before following her. When they were gone, Noah let out a quiet breath. His shoulders slumped slightly, but he didn't stop working. He straightened the papers on the desk, checked the booking records, small, simple tasks that probably felt like a distraction from what had just happened. Keanu watched from his chair, feeling a deep anger in his chest. He had seen discrimination before. He had felt it himself at times. He knew exactly what had just happened. Part of him wanted to stand up and say something right then and there. To tell those two exactly who he was. That he owned this hotel. That Noah was doing a great job, and that their rude, unfair behavior wouldn't be tolerated. But something told him this wasn't over yet. The tension in the air felt like a stretched rubber band, ready to snap. And snap it did. Less than an hour later, the elevator chimed again. Victoria and Grayson walked back into the lobby. This time they weren't dressed for dinner. This time they were wearing expensive hotel robes and slippers, their faces red with anger as if they had been arguing. They were back. And they were still upset. Grayson held his phone tightly, his fingers gripping it so hard his knuckles turned white. The bright screen shone against his face in the dim hotel lobby, making his scowl look even sharper. "You again?" Victoria snapped, pointing an accusing finger at Noah. "Our suite is freezing. We tried to fix the thermostat, but it's obviously broken. I'm done waiting. We need to speak to someone else, someone who actually knows how to fix things." Noah, the hotel employee standing behind the front desk, tried his best to stay calm. He stole a quick glance at the clock on the wall. It was already past 1 a.m. He sighed internally. Some guests could be difficult, but this couple was something else entirely. "I'm really sorry about the temperature," Noah said in the most professional tone he could manage. "I can call our maintenance team right away or move you to a better room if—" "Don't you dare talk down to us," Grayson snapped, waving his phone like it was a weapon. "I've already recorded everything that happened tonight. We've posted it online and thousands of people have seen it. You'll regret treating us this way." Keanu, who had been sitting quietly in the lounge area nearby, felt something inside him tighten. He had noticed the couple earlier, watching how they spoke to Noah. Their voices had been loud, their words sharp, their attitudes dripping with entitlement. And now they had gone so far as to post something online, something meant to harm Noah's reputation. Keanu stood up slowly. He had spent his life staying out of trouble, avoiding unnecessary fights. But this wasn't about him. This was about standing up for someone who didn't deserve this treatment. He wouldn't stay silent. As he walked toward the front desk, the overhead lights illuminated his face. Victoria turned around, probably expecting another hotel staff member. But when her eyes met his, she froze. For a brief second, Keanu saw confusion flicker across her face. Then her expression shifted to shock. Grayson, too, blinked in disbelief, his grip on his phone loosening. "Keanu Reeves?" Grayson stammered. "What are you doing here?" Keanu nodded politely. "I was here for a quiet stay," he said, his voice even. "But I seem to have walked into quite a scene." The room went silent. The only sound was the soft classical music playing through the hotel speakers and the faint hum of the heating system. Even Noah looked stunned to see Keanu standing up for him. Victoria straightened her posture, suddenly trying to appear more composed. We didn't realize," she stuttered. "We've been guests here for so many years. We didn't mean anything by—" "You posted something about him online," Keanu interrupted, pointing at Noah. His tone remained calm, but there was an edge to it now. "I'd like to see that post." Grayson shifted uncomfortably, his fingers gripping his phone tightly again. But after a few seconds he slowly held it out. Keanu glanced at the screen. The post had hundreds, no thousands, of shares and comments. The words written there were carefully chosen, just vague enough to avoid sounding outright cruel, but the message was clear. The once great Horizon Skylark Hotel has sunk to hiring staff who don't know how to treat proper guests. We have never been so disrespected. Avoid this place if you want good service. Keanu felt his jaw clench. He slowly handed the phone back to Grayson, his expression unreadable. "You believe Noah disrespected you?" Keanu asked, his voice quiet but firm. This man has worked here for 5 years. He has an excellent record. He's professional. He's skilled. And from what I've seen, he's incredibly patient, even with guests who don't deserve it. Victoria looked flustered. We didn't know he was senior staff, she muttered quickly. We just expect a certain level of service. Keanu crossed his arms. Tell me something. How long have you been staying at this hotel? Grayson hesitated before clearing his throat. Almost 10 years? Keanu nodded. And in all that time, has Noah ever once treated you badly? Silence. Grayson's jaw tightened. He didn't answer. Victoria looked down at the floor. Keanu continued. Because from what I've seen tonight, he's done nothing but his job. He's been nothing but polite to you. And yet, you've posted about him online, making him sound incompetent, trying to damage his reputation. That's not just unfair. It's cruel. Victoria's lips parted like she wanted to argue, but she had no words. Noah stood quietly behind the desk. His face was calm, but Keanu could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of years of dealing with guests like these. Keanu exhaled. It was time to tell them the truth. I should mention something, he said carefully. I'm not just some random guest staying here. I recently bought the Horizon Skylark Hotel. I'm the new owner. Grayson's face went pale. Victoria's eyes widened in horror. Wait, you own this hotel? Grayson stammered. We had no idea. Victoria gasped. Look, we can talk about this. We're big fans of your work. Yes. Victoria nodded quickly, forcing a smile. Huge fans. We loved your last movie. Keanu didn't react. The problem isn't me, he said simply. The problem is what you did to Noah. You posted about him online, making him look bad. And now that you know I own the hotel, you suddenly want to be polite? Grayson fumbled for words. It was just frustration, he muttered. We'll delete the post. I'm sure you will, Keanu said softly, because now you're worried about your own reputation. But how do you plan to make this right for Noah? Victoria shuffled her feet nervously. We'll apologize, of course. We can write a nice post about him. Maybe a donation? Anything you need. Keanu turned to Noah, giving him a small nod. This was Noah's choice now. Noah took a deep breath. I appreciate an apology, he said finally. But apologies don't mean much without real change. If you're really sorry, you'll delete the post. And you'll learn to treat everyone, hotel staff, waiters, drivers, anyone you meet, with real respect. The silence was heavy. Grayson and Victoria exchanged panicked glances. Then they mumbled a quick, stumbling apology. Grayson pulled out his phone, probably to delete the post. Keanu's voice softened slightly. I also plan to have a conversation with my management team tomorrow about how we handle situations like this. From now on, we're making a new rule, 0 tolerance for guest harassment. Noah looked surprised. You mean? Keanu nodded. No more letting wealthy or influential guests bully employees. If a guest treats staff unfairly, we'll stand by our employees, not brush things under the rug. A slow smile spread across Noah's face. That would mean a lot. Guests like them, he nodded toward the couple, think they can do whatever they want. I've reported situations like this before, but nothing ever changed. Keanu's eyes were steady. It will now. Grayson and Victoria hurried off to their suite, likely to delete their post and rewrite their apology. The lobby returned to its quiet state. The clock on the wall now reads 2:25 a.m. Keanu turned back to Noah. The exhaustion in his shoulders seemed to fade just a little. Thank you, Noah said. His voice was quiet but full of meaning. I didn't think anyone would stand up for me. Keanu gave a small shrug. You shouldn't have needed anyone to stand up for you in the first place. That's what we're going to fix. The next morning, Keanu was in a big meeting room at the hotel. Even though he had only slept for 3 hours, he still felt full of energy. People who worked at the hotel had heard about what happened the night before, and they were all talking about it. Everyone wanted to know more. Keanu sat down with the managers of different departments like cleaning, room service, security, and the front desk. Some of them looked nervous, like they thought they had done something wrong. Others had only just found out that Keanu Reeves was their new boss. Let's keep this easy and friendly, Keanu said with a smile, motioning for everyone to sit around the big oval table. I want to hear from all of you. We need to make sure that situations like last night are handled fairly, for both the guests and the staff. The room got quiet. For a moment, no one spoke. Then a woman named Lena, who was the cleaning manager, raised her hand and spoke up. We've lost some really good workers because they didn't feel safe, she said. Some guests think they can treat the staff however they want just because they have money. And the old managers didn't really help us when things got bad. Other people nodded. They agreed with her. Lena continued, Noah isn't the first worker to deal with rude guests. He's just one of the few who stayed, even after dealing with trouble many times. Keanu leaned forward. I'm making a new rule, he said. If a guest is rude, mean, or unfair to an employee, we will write it down. And the managers must do something about it. No one should feel scared at work just because a guest has money or is famous online. Noah, who was invited to the meeting, raised his hand. And what if a guest tries to ruin an employee's name on the internet? He asked. Keanu nodded and tapped a piece of paper in front of him. That's also on my list. We will watch what people say about the hotel online. If someone lies or is unfair about one of our employees, we will respond in a polite but strong way to protect them. A small wave of excitement ran through the room. This wasn't just a normal work meeting. The staff could tell that real changes were coming. Later that day, a man named Richard Hawthorne arrived at the hotel. He used to own the hotel before selling it to Keanu. He looked upset, holding a briefcase, and walked quickly toward the front desk. Where is the person in charge? He asked, his voice sharp. Then he saw Keanu standing nearby. He rushed over, his face red. Mr. Reeves, he said in a tight voice. We need to talk about what happened last night. The Prestons, longtime guests, are very upset. They're blaming us, the old owners, for making the hotel an unfriendly place. Keanu looked at him calmly. The only ones being unfriendly were the Prestons, he said. They treated a great employee terribly just because they thought he wasn't good enough. Richard frowned. So you're choosing to go against rich, loyal guests? That's not how we built this hotel's good name. Keanu crossed his arms. If your hotel's reputation was built by letting rich people be mean to employees, then it's time for a new way of doing things. Richard opened his mouth to argue but then tried a different approach. Do you know how bad this looks in public? The news is talking about it. Social media is going crazy. Keanu held up a hand to stop him. And if we handle this the right way, people will know this hotel stands for fairness and respect. That's a much better reputation than just keeping rude guests happy. Richard sighed and shook his head. You'll see how hard this gets, he muttered. This place can't run on kindness alone. Keanu's voice was calm but firm. This hotel runs on people. If we don't treat people well, we have nothing. Richard had no response. His shoulders slumped and he walked away, mumbling about how things used to be easier. News of what happened spread quickly, not just in the hotel but outside of it too. People from other hotels sent messages, saying they wished their workplaces were the same. Guests who cared about fairness also shared their support. Keanu stayed busy. He gave jobs to different managers and wrote a set of new rules. He called it the Fair Hospitality Accord. This document clearly explained the rights of hotel employees, the responsibilities of hotel guests, what the managers must do to make sure the rules are followed. A few days later, Noah had the honor of hanging a framed copy of the new rules on the hotel lobby wall. He placed it right next to a beautiful display of white lilies. As he hung it, some employees clapped softly. Guests stopped to read the new rules. Grayson and Victoria, the rude guests, wrote an apology and spoke to Noah privately. Then, without any drama, they quietly left the hotel. No yelling. No arguing. Just a quiet goodbye. The staff, who had seen how arrogant they were before, noticed that they now seemed different, quieter, almost like they had finally understood that money didn't make them better than others. That evening, when the hotel had calmed down, Keanu saw Noah in the lobby again. He was arranging flowers, this time purple orchids. Orchids tonight? Keanu asked with a smile. Noah grinned. Yeah, trying something new. They remind me of strength. Keanu nodded, then lowered his voice. How do you feel about everything? It's been a wild few days. Noah thought for a moment. I feel grateful, he said. Not many bosses would stand up for their employees like you did. You didn't just change the rules, you changed how we feel about coming to work. Keanu hesitated, then said, I didn't do this alone. You and the rest of the team have been holding this place together for a long time. I just made sure you got the support you deserved. Noah placed the last orchid in the vase. A small smile crossed his face. That's the best kind of leadership, Mr. Reeves. If you enjoyed this story, share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories filled with adventure, mystery, and excitement. Your support means the world and it helps keep these stories coming. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.